I celebrated my 62nd birthday alone in a room full of expensive catering and unopened champagne, staring at 30 empty chairs while my phone stayed silent, only to find out that my sister-in-law had orchestrated the entire boycott to host her own dog's birthday party on the exact same night. Imagine standing in a banquet hall you paid for with your retirement savings, realizing your entire family, your children, your siblings, your cousins, had chosen a golden retriever's birthday over your 60-year milestone, all because one woman wanted to prove she held the strings to my life. I need you to be honest with me right now. If you found out your entire support system had traded your dignity for a petty power play, would you forgive them, or would you do exactly what I did and burn every bridge until they had nothing left to stand on? This wasn't just a missed dinner. It was a calculated execution of my social standing within my own bloodline. And I'm still shaking as I recount how the woman I once welcomed into this family, like a sister, turned my most special day into a public humiliation that I will never forget. To understand how I ended up sitting in the dark of a rented ballroom, you have to understand the dynamic between me and my sister-in-law, Brenda. I've always been the rock of the family, the one who hosted every Thanksgiving, paid for the niece's graduation gifts, and kept my brother, Mike, afloat during his multiple failed business ventures. For 40 years, I worked double shifts as an ICU nurse, saving every penny not for myself, but to ensure that if any member of my family stumbled, I would be there to catch them. When Mike married Brenda 10 years ago, I was her biggest advocate. She was younger, a bit flighty, and clearly desperate for attention, but I thought she just needed a family to belong to. I remember the day they got married. I paid for her wedding dress because Mike was between jobs again. I didn't mind. I thought that's what family does. For a decade, I treated her like a queen. But looking back, I see that every nice thing I did was just another brick in the wall of resentment she was building against me. She hated that the family looked to me for decisions. She hated that my house was the hub for every holiday. She didn't want to be part of the family, she wanted to own it. She would make snide comments about my extravagance whenever I'd host a nice dinner, calling it a performance, even as she reached for a second helping of the prime rib I'd spent all day preparing. As my 62nd birthday approached, I decided for the first time in my life to do something big for myself. I've spent my life caring for the dying and the sick, and I wanted a night of elegance, a night where I wasn't the one serving everyone else. I booked a beautiful private room at a local high-end bistro, sent out physical invitations 3 months in advance, and personally called everyone to make sure they were coming. I even hired a live cellist because I've always loved classical music. My kids promised they'd be there. Sarah even told me she was getting her hair done specifically for the event. Mike said he'd bring the whole crew, and even Brenda smiled to my face during our last lunch and said she wouldn't miss it for the world, even asking if there would be a gift table. The week of the party, things started getting weird. I noticed a shift in the family group chat. Usually it's buzzing with plans, but it went completely dead. When I texted my daughter, Sarah, to ask if she'd picked up the dress she mentioned, she gave me a short, one-word answer. I brushed it off, thinking everyone was just busy or perhaps planning a surprise for me. I even thought maybe they were all chipping in for a big gift and were trying to keep it a secret. I sent a final reminder on Wednesday, then another on the morning of the party, confirming the 7 p.m. start time. No one replied with anything other than a thumbs-up emoji from my niece. On the day of my birthday, I spent 3 hours at the salon. I wanted to look and feel like I mattered. I wore a deep navy silk gown and the pearls my late husband gave me. I arrived at the venue at 6:30 p.m. The staff was incredible. They had the candles lit, and the cellist was tuning his instrument. The C bass was being prepared to perfection. 7:15 p.m. came and went. Then 7:30 p.m. I checked my phone thinking there was an accident on the highway. Nothing. I called Mike, he didn't pick up. I called Sarah. It went straight to voicemail. By 8 p.m., the manager of the restaurant approached me with a look of pure pity that burned worse than the silence. I was sitting there in a $300 silk gown, surrounded by enough appetizers to feed a small village, and not a single person had even sent a happy birthday text. It was then that I decided to check social media, something I rarely do. I opened Instagram, and there it was, a dagger straight to the heart. Brenda had posted a live story. The location tag was her backyard, only 20 minutes away from where I was sitting. There was a massive banner that read Buster's second bark day. And under it was my entire family. My brother was manning the grill. My daughter was holding Brenda's dog, wearing a party hat. My cousins were clinking glasses in the background. The caption read, "The real family knows where the party is tonight. Sorry, not sorry. Some things are just more important than an ego trip dinner." I felt the blood drain from my face. She hadn't just skipped my party. She had scheduled a fake celebration for her dog on the exact same night, at the exact same time, and had somehow convinced or coerced every single person I loved to choose a pet over their mother, sister, and aunt. I watched the video and saw them laughing, eating burgers, and toasting to a dog, while I sat in a silent ballroom with a cellist who eventually stopped playing because he couldn't bear to look at me anymore. I sat in that empty room and paid the full $4,000 bill. Every cent of it, and I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I walked out to my car, drove home in total silence, and sat in my dark living room. The silence of my house was deafening. I realized in those hours that my kindness hadn't bought me love. It had bought me a bunch of people who were only there as long as it was convenient. Brenda had successfully staged a coup, proving that she could snap her fingers and my entire legacy would vanish. So that is the situation I was in. I had spent my life building a table for people who wouldn't even give me a seat at theirs when it mattered most. I had the evidence on my phone screen. A backyard dog party chosen over my 62nd birthday. Before I tell you how I spent the rest of that night, and the absolute nuclear option I chose to take the very next morning, I want you to pause and comment below. If you saw your entire family on Instagram celebrating a dog's birthday while you sat alone at your own party, what would your first move be? Would you call them crying, or would you start planning your exit? I really want to know if I'm the only one who thinks this is a level of betrayal you can never come back from. The next morning, the apology texts started rolling in, clearly prompted by Brenda once she realized I had seen the posts and was no longer engaging. My daughter texted saying, "Mom, I'm so sorry. Brenda said you had canceled the party because you weren't feeling well, so we all just went over there instead. We didn't want the food to go to waste." My brother Mike called and said, "Sis, don't be dramatic. It's just a birthday. We'll do lunch next week at that deli you like." But I knew it was a lie. I had sent a reminder text to the group chat that very morning. They didn't think I'd canceled. They just didn't care enough to check. Brenda had told them a lie to give them an out, and they took it because it was easier than getting dressed up for me. But here is the thing about being the rock of the family. I own the quarry. See, 10 years ago, I bought the small 3-bedroom house my brother lives in as an investment. I've let him and Brenda live there for a rent of $500 a month, which doesn't even cover the property taxes and insurance in this neighborhood. I've effectively been subsidizing their lifestyle for a decade. I also hold the college fund accounts for my nieces, Brenda's daughters, which I've been contributing $500 a month to since the day each of them was born. I stood up, walked to my home office, and called my lawyer. I didn't wait for a second cup of coffee. I told him I wanted to sell the property Mike was living in, effective immediately. Since there was no formal long-term lease, only a month-to-month verbal agreement, I had the legal right to list it. I also instructed him to move the funds from the girls' college accounts, which were legally in my name as the sole contributor, into a private trust for my own retirement and future travel. If I was just an ego trip, then they certainly didn't need my ego trip money to fund their futures. By noon, I had sent a formal 30-day notice to vacate to my brother. By 1 p.m., I had blocked every single family member on all platforms. I didn't want to hear the excuses. I didn't want to hear the tears. The explosion was more than I could have hoped for. Mike came banging on my door 2 days later, his face red and veins popping in his neck. He was screaming that they had nowhere to go, that the rental market was insane, and that Brenda was in hysterics because they couldn't afford anything in this school district. I didn't even open the door. I sat on my sofa with a glass of wine, spoke through the Ring camera, and said, "I'm sure Buster has plenty of room in his doghouse. Since his birthday was so important that it required a family-wide boycott, maybe he can pay your mortgage." Brenda then tried to play the victim on Facebook. She posted a long, rambling video about how vicious and bitter I was for kicking a family out onto the street over a simple misunderstanding. She even had the audacity to say I was senile and losing my grip on reality. That was her final mistake. I went into the comments and posted the receipts. I uploaded the screenshots of my reminder texts from that morning. I uploaded the $4,000 receipt from the bistro, showing the exact time of payment. I uploaded a photo of the empty tables. And then, I uploaded the video from my doorbell camera showing Brenda and Mike laughing as they walked past my house earlier that week, Brenda saying, "She'll be fine, she has plenty of money to sit in a room by herself." The local community went wild. People who had always viewed me as the sweet nurse were horrified. Brenda's reputation in our small town evaporated overnight. Even her own friends started distancing themselves when they saw the level of calculated cruelty she had displayed. The pressure didn't stop there. My daughter Sarah tried to come over and mediate, claiming she was just caught in the middle. I told her through the door that being caught in the middle usually means you stood by and watched a crime happen. I told her that she was an adult with her own car and her own phone, and if she couldn't be bothered to call her mother on her 62nd birthday, she couldn't be bothered to inherit the house she was so looking forward to. I told her I was changing my will to leave everything to the local animal shelter. Not for dogs like Buster, but for the staff who actually do hard work. The reality started to sink in for them. Without my subsidized rent, Mike had to take a second job. Without the college funds, the girls had to start looking at community colleges and part-time work. The birthday party ended up costing them their entire future. I sold the house Mike was in within 2 weeks to a lovely young couple, who actually thanked me for the opportunity. On the day they moved out, Brenda tried to take the appliances I had paid for. I had the police there to ensure she didn't take a single thing that wasn't hers. Watching her carry her belongings in trash bags while Buster the dog barked from the back of a rusted-out moving van was the most satisfying birthday present I could have asked for. The aftermath was a total collapse of our family structure. My daughter tried to crawl back one last time, sending a long letter about family values, but I returned it to sender unopened. I sold my own large house, downsized to a beautiful condo by the water, and used the college fund money to book a 6-month luxury tour of Europe. I spent my actual birthday makeup month in Italy, eating pasta and drinking wine with strangers who treated me with more kindness in 10 minutes than my family had in 10 years. I realized that being the one everyone relies on is often just another way of saying the one everyone takes for granted. I lost a family that night, but I gained a life where I don't have to compete with a dog for basic respect. I don't have to wonder if people like me for me, or for what I can provide. The silence in my life now isn't lonely, it's peaceful. It's the sound of a woman who finally knows her own worth. Looking back, that empty ballroom was the best gift I could have ever received. It was a mirror that showed me the ugly truth I had been ignoring for a decade, because I was too afraid to be alone. It showed me exactly who was standing behind me and who was just standing in my pockets. It's funny how people only start calling you family and talking about unconditional love when you stop letting them treat you like an ATM. If there is a moral here, it's that your time and your love are currencies, and you should stop spending them on people who are looking for a discount. Don't wait until you're 62 to realize that you are allowed to be the main character in your own story. Like this video if you think I was right to evict them and take back my peace. I want to see how many of you would have the spine to do the same. Subscribe for more stories about people finally standing up for themselves and burning the toxic past to the ground. And please share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Did I go too far by taking the college money, or did they get exactly what they deserved for choosing a dog over a mother? I'll see you all in the next story.